Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin.
Come along on a journey with the tie-dyed traveling guy and Catfish Billy as we take a trip back to the 60s and early 70s as we walk in the footsteps of the Doors. A lot of these locations were found online. Some were found on the Doors AI app, and a lot of other locations were found in Robby's book, Ray's book, and John's book. Every time they mentioned a location in their book, I wrote it down, did a Google search, found the location, found the addresses, made a list. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Ross, the tie-dyed traveling guy, coming to you from Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood, California. Special guest with me on this trip, Catfish Billy. We won't talk about the catfish right now, but it's a pretty cool fishing story. We'll just say that. Anyway, we are here in Doors Central. This is where they recorded, they ate, they slept, they drank, they played. Right here, we are about to check. We're gonna check into what is now the Ramada at 8585 Santa Monica Boulevard. This is the former location of the Tropicana. This was one of the hotels that Jim would stay at when him and Pam got into a fight and when the Alta Cienega Motel was unavailable. Speaking of the Alta Cienega, it is right that way. The Doors Workshop is that way. Barney's Beanery is that way. Elektra Records was that way. We are literally in Doors Central. So we are going to take you on a journey of the Doors and where they were, walking in their footsteps right here. The story about the Tropicana goes back to August 21st, 1966. When the Doors were playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go on the Sunset Strip. Jim did not show up for the first set. And when they got done with that first set, the booking agent was angry, to say the least, that Jim was not there. They were being paid for 3 guys, or for 4, and there was only 3. So they had to go find Jim, and they found him right here at the Tropicana Motel in room 203, 1,000 mics of LSD, wearing only his underwear and his boots. They got him out of the Tropicana. They got him up to the Sunset Strip, to the Whiskey for the second set. And that is when Jim went into the Oedipal complex for the first time during the end. We all know how that goes. Father, I want to kill you. Mother, I want to. Shh, we won't say it. This is a PG program. But right here, where Wells Fargo currently is, used to be Duke's coffee shop. And when the Doors would take a break from the Doors Workshop, which is right over yonder. We'll get to that in a little while. But they would come over here to the Duke's coffee shop. They would get food. Sandy Koufax actually owned it. He owned the Tropicana. He owned Duke's. And that's where the guys would go eat. Obviously, there were other places in the area, but this was just one of them because it was literally right across the street. So, hey, Duke's Coffee Shop was here. The Tropicana was here as well. Now it's the Ramada. And we're gonna go check in because we are staying here. We requested room 203, but it was not available. So, hey, we're gonna go in, take a peek what used to be Duke's coffee shop. And we'll give you a tour of the lobby, our room, and basically everything that the Ramada has to offer. Words are hard today, I guess. It's been a long day. Long day. Travel days are hard. Catfish Billy, he's a trooper. All right, here it is. West Hollywood. All right, let's go inside. All right, here we are at the Ramada Plaza on Santa Monica Boulevard, formerly the Tropicana. Room 230 was unavailable, or 203 I should say. Well, as we walk in here, we have a nice open concept. 2 double beds. Yeah, those are small beds. Nice little seating area here. Desk. Got a couple little drawers down there. Refrigerator, anything? She said we had... Oh, there's the pool over there. I guess we do kind of have a partial pool view over there. Otherwise, it's just the parking lot, pretty much. How's that looking there? Let me come in there and take a look. Good bath, shower. Look at those good-looking guys. Wow. All right, yeah, we got a bathtub in there. Oh, we do have some Dove body wash, conditioner, shampoo. I definitely need to hop in there ASAP. We've been hoofing it. All right, we got some soap. All right, looks nice. We're here for 2 nights. Oh, there is a refrigerator. Fantastic. Coffee. It's not stocked, but that's okay. Ooh, even a freezer. All right. Nice room here. 410 at the Ramada, formerly the Tropicana. Jim Morrison slept somewhere nearby. That's all we know. So, hey, we're going to show you the pool. We're going to show you pretty much what we can show you here at the Ramada. But then we're also going all over Barney's, Alta, Cienega, Motel. We're going to give you the whole tour. There's going to be over 80 locations. 80 locations from the doors where they ate, slept, recorded, absolutely everything. You will be blown away by this video. Watch it all the way to the end and subscribe to the Tie-Dyed Traveling Guy. Let's go on a journey and walk in the footsteps of the doors. Come on, Billy, let's go. Good morning, y'all. It is a dark, gloomy, and rainy morning here in West Hollywood. We are walking down La Cienega, right towards the Alta Cienega Motel. This was Jim's favorite motel to stay in when him and Pam got into a fight, which was quite often, whether it was their infidelity, Jim going to the strip clubs, whatever the case may be, he stayed right here in room 32. We will not be able to get in there because it is closed. It shut down 2021 when the pandemic hit, COVID, and they have not reopened. Once upon a time, the walls of room 32 were completely covered in graffiti. And here's a couple pictures of what it used to look like before they painted over everything. But when Jim would walk in here, he would go up those stairs to the top of the stairs, go to the right again, right over to room 32. And that was his spot. Cars hiss by my window. 1005. Alta, Cienega, Motel. And then as we walk here, this building used to be the phone booth. In the phone booth was a strip club that Jim went to very, very often. And of course that angered Pam, which led to more fights, which led to Jim staying at the Alta Cienega Motel. So this is the building now at 8505. But this is what it used to look like when it was the phone booth. And it has since been torn down. And right next door to what was previously the phone booth, and right around the corner from the Alta Cienega, it is now currently WeHo Wine and Spirits, but it was previously Monaco Liquor. And this was the favorite liquor store of Jim Morrison. Wake up this morning and I got myself a beer, which I was actually thinking about doing, but they are closed. Even though they were supposed to open like 45 minutes ago, they have yet to open. So hey, maybe we'll just have to get ourselves a beer somewhere. Catfish Billy, he's still hanging, he's a trooper, even in the rain. And as we continue to walk in the footsteps of the doors, we're gonna head right across the street there. Looks like we got some rain that we need to take care of on the lens here. Somehow, some way, we'll try to clean this off. But then we'll get over to the Doors Workshop. Elektra, we're gonna head down La Cienega, so stay tuned. Let's go. Because right here at WeHo, formerly known as Monaco Liquor, is where Jim Morrison would walk, either from the Tropicana in that direction, or from the Alta Cienega that direction. So even though we weren't able to wake up this morning and get ourselves a beer, we can still go in here and get ourselves something to drink this afternoon. So right in here, Jim Morrison would buy alcohol. He liked his Dos Equis, his Tecate, definitely liked his whiskey. Jim Morrison, you know about Jim Morrison coming in here? Do you mind being on camera? Do you know any stories? No stories about Jim Morrison? Alright, well he used to stay at the Alta Cienega Motel, room 32. He used to stay at the Tropicana, which is now the Ramada. And this used to be Monaco Liquor. Back in the late 60s, early 70s.
You're right.
And Jim Morrison would come, oh, I'm gonna have to get one of those mini jacks. Jim Morrison used to drink 2 or 3 bottles of Jack Daniels every day. Not these tiny little bottles. Is that a liter or is that a 750?
Yeah, 750.
Yeah, 2 or 3 of those every day. But that's that rock and roll lifestyle from the Doors. All right, y'all. This is WeHo Wine and Spirits, formerly Monaco Liquor, where Jim Morrison used to wake up in the morning and get himself a beer. All right, y'all. Catch you later. All right, y'all. We just came from the Alta Cienega Motel, the phone booth, and Monaco Liquor, which is now WeHo. And right here on this other corner, 8500 Santa Monica Boulevard, was the Extension, which was another strip club that Jim would go to. And a lot of times he would do his interviews at the strip club just to make them uncomfortable, trying to do an interview when there are naked women dancing around. You know, he did an interview with Jerry Hopkins, 1969. And then right next door to what used to be the extension is the Doors Workshop. 8512. Santa Monica Boulevard. This is where the Doors recorded LA Woman. And right through those doors, Jim Morrison recorded his vocals in the bathroom. All the recording was done downstairs while all the business was taken care of upstairs. Quick wipe on the phone here. And we can see clearly again. So, right around on these stairs here, there are pictures of the Doors, and here's one of them. So walking down here, this is where the Doors in 1970 and early 71 would have walked. Would have maybe smoked a joint out here in the alleyway. We will get in here a little bit later when they open up. We will get into the bathroom where Jim Morrison recorded the vocals for LA Woman. And right down here on the ground, open at 12 o'clock. It is only about 9 o'clock in the morning here. So we will come back to Tail of the Pup, to the Doors Workshop. Alright, Tail of the Pup is open. Formerly the Doors Workshop, where the Doors recorded LA Woman. Stood on those stairs right now, right there. The office was upstairs. Recording studio was downstairs. And now oh, there it is right there. Right there is where Jim Morrison recorded his vocals. Let's go inside. Look at this. Is it gonna let me? It doesn't close. That doesn't matter. We are in here in the bathroom. This is where Jim Morrison recorded his vocals for LA Woman. Right here. Just got in the town about an hour ago. Took a look around and which way the wind blows. Alright, y'all. This is the spa. I know there's a toilet and it's just a bathroom right now. But back in late 1970, early 1971, this is the bathroom. This is the room where Jim Morrison recorded his vocals for LA Woman. Wow. I know some of you might be like, whoop-de-doo, it's a bathroom. But for you true Doors fans, this is like Mecca. Look at that. Happy 60th to the Doors, 2025. We're going to see Robby Krieger. We're leaving Tail the Pup, the Doors Workshop, and we are going to the Whiskey A Go-Go to see Robby Krieger play LA Woman in its entirety. The album that was recorded right here at the Doors Workshop. So as we go out,
we take a little walk around to where the Doors rehearsed. All of their equipment was set up here. Drums, amps, guitars, raised keyboard and bass, Jim's microphones, everything was set up right here in this area. Super cool to know that the Doors themselves were literally right here in this space. 1970, early 71. This is the spot right here. Billy, get in here. Alright, y'all. This is the spot. And that is the vocal booth. So cool. Alright, y'all. Thank you for watching. Continue to walk with us in the footsteps of the Doors. We're heading up to the whiskey next for Robby Krieger, April 26, 2025, playing LA Woman in its entirety. Let's get it.
But as we continue walking down Santa Monica Boulevard, there was another bar that Jim would go to, and it was called the Palms, and it was known as a lesbian bar. And this is another place where Jim would take different people from the media to interview them in a very uncomfortable situation. I'm sorry if the screen has rain on it. I'm trying to keep it clean as much as possible. Can't control the weather, but we always do the best we can. Champions adjust. So we're looking for 8572, 8550 Santa Monica Boulevard, and then it goes to 8576. So 8572 would have been right in here somewhere where the Palms Lesbian Bar was located. And now, Ready, Fit, Go Healthy Meals and Capital Drugs is now there. Jim would have liked that place. But right here is where the Palms Lesbian Bar. Oh, they even have rainbow open sign. Check that out. LGBT. Alright, so it's still kind of rainbow friendly. Okay, so right there it was. And now we're going to head back up towards La Cienega, Catfish Billy's, Slamerican. And we're going to go to Barney's, and we're going to go to Elektra Studios, Warner Playhouse. We got all kinds of things. So hey, stay tuned. Continue to walk in the footsteps of the Doors. Let's go. Elektra Records, 962 La Cienega Boulevard. This is the house that the Doors built. They recorded Morrison Hotel and the Soft Parade right there. And they also worked on Wild Child within Elektra Studios. And then right next door where this parking lot currently is used to be Bob Adler's 940 Club. And that was one of Jim's favorite bars to go to because it was literally right next door to the recording studio for those two albums. And then as we spin around to this side of the street, we have 947 La Cienega Boulevard. This was Themis, aka Clear Thoughts. This was the store that Jim Morrison funded for his girlfriend, Pamela Corson. Their shop was upstairs, which I don't know if we can really get a shot of that. And it was more of a hangout for Jim, Pam, and their friends. You know, they were open at odd hours, but they were stocked with, you know, a lot of psychedelic, European type products. Look at that, panoramic doors is now in that area. And also, Highway was kind of messed around there. The offices were there. You know, that's the unreleased film that Jim was recording. You know, he had done some filming at the Alta Cienega Motel in room 32 that we just saw a little bit ago. So right here, 962, we had Elektra Records, and then right next door was the Bob Adler's 940 Club, and then immediately across the street was Themis, aka Clear Thoughts, which I'm sure Clear Thoughts were not had at this location as they were partying. Catfish Billy likes to party, so we're gonna head down La Cienega to the Warner Playhouse. Let's go! Here we are, 755 La Cienega Boulevard. Back in 1966, this was the Warner Playhouse. In May of 1966, specifically May 6th, May 7th, May 13th, and 14th, the Doors played here in 1966, 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning. Bands would play here. They called it the Night Flight. After all of the other clubs would close, they would come here to the Warner Playhouse to continue the party, to jam, to rock out, to create art, to create music, poetry, right here in this building at the Warner Playhouse. May 6, 7, 13, and 14, 1966. I don't think we can see anything in there. But this was the spot. Not too far up La Cienega is Elektra Workshop. Elektra Studios, I mean. Sorry, the Doors Workshop. Alta Cienega Motel. The phone booth. The extension. We were just at all those places. This was Doors Central, y'all. Everything was right in this area. So we're going to continue on walking in the footsteps of the Doors. Alright, y'all, you're definitely going to recognize this next location. Right at the corner of Holloway and Santa Monica Boulevard, we have the famous and infamous Barney's Beanery at 8447 Santa Monica Boulevard. Built in 1920, has seen the likes of not only Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, And go back even further, and Marilyn Monroe, and Joe DiMaggio, and Clark Gable, and possibly even Frank Sinatra. The list goes on and on and on of who has graced their presence here at Barney's Beanery. We are here in honor of the Doors and Jim Morrison, as this was one of his favorites of all time because of its proximity to the Alta Cienega Motel. The Doors workshop is right over there, and it's just close to everything. So let's go inside here. I'm pretty sure they're open. Today is Saturday. What time we got, Catfish?
9:35.
Okay, so we cannot go in yet. So we will have to swing back around. Go inside to give you a tour of Barney's Beanery. 8447 Santa Monica Boulevard. Alright. See ya right around 10:30. Let's head in for a tour. As we walk in, right away is the table that Janis Joplin carved her name in, which is now mounted on the ceiling. Right over here, this table was known to be the table that Quentin Tarantino sat at. But this was the spot for Jim Morrison. It was close to the Alta Cienega. It was close to the Tropicana, the Doors workshop. This is Doors Central right here. He did get 86th out of here multiple times. One specifically for urinating on the bar, which is documented in the Doors movie.
He's not going to fish.
If these walls could talk. Alright, let's go check out the bar. Alright, here we are. Barney's Beanery, sitting at the bar at the spot. Jim Morrison, poet, artist, legend. Right here. Barney's Beanery. Supposedly, at some point between 68 and early 71, he jumped up on the bar right here and urinated, got kicked out, but they let him back in. Then they kicked him out, let him back in. This was his spot. So much history. If these walls could talk. How about a shot of Jack Daniels for Jim Morrison? Here we go, Jack Daniels for Jim. Barney's Beanery. Right here. Let's go. Cheers.
Not after growing up here and then New York.
Just some of all the women were kind of basic. You know? Or at least
Not good.
my group.
Yeah.
But we're doing it for Jim. Yeah, Jim's bar. Barney's Beanery. Blech. That was gross. Jack Daniels.
Probably like mine are like.
Nowhere's perfect, though.
Woke up this morning and I got myself a beer at Barney's Beanery. Sitting on Jim's stool. Jim's spot. Cheers. Alright, we are walking right up to 8216 and a half is where Jim Morrison and Pamela Corson lived. 1970, 1971 in an upstairs residence. Right over here on this pillar used to be a plaque. Sadly, it has been stolen, but this is what it looked like. So as you can see, we will not be able to get into the actual apartment that Jim and Pamela lived in, but you can, from what I saw on a YouTube video, $99 an hour to be able to take an inside tour of 8216 and a half Norton Avenue, West Hollywood. Sherry Amour. So hey, check it out, y'all. The last residence of Jim Morrison and Pamela Corson on a wet, cold, rainy day right here in West Hollywood at the last residence. Jim and Pamela. Just wish this rain would stop. Riders on the storm. Alright, I had to. Alright, y'all. We are heading to the Boar restaurant. We'll tell you a little bit more about that when we get there. But for now, we have to go find Catfish Billy. He is seeking shelter. In the rain, out of the rain. Let's roll, homie. Boar restaurant. Just right around the corner. Let's go. Here we are walking down North Crescent Heights Boulevard. Back in 1971, right here at this location at 1015 North Crescent Heights Boulevard was a restaurant called the Boar Restaurant. In 1971, right before Jim left for Paris, all of the doors, Bruce Botnick, Paul Rothschild, the fake doors, Vince, Trainer was there, Bill Siddons, Danny Sugarman, Leon Bernard, and they had a private long table with a fireplace, and they had some beer, they had some wine, baked potatoes, mashed vegetables, all kinds of good stuff, a lot of drinks, a lot of wine, and more wine, Jim cried out. Is a quote from one of their books. I don't remember which one. Here's to the doors and my salary, said Babe. And even Paul Ferreira hurled a glass into the flames. Here's to rock and roll, said Jim. And this was the last time that they would all be together. They called it the Last Supper. The dick made me jump a little bit. You might have seen the the video shake a little bit, but yeah, right here, 1015, new building, brand new it looks. But this was the spot, not too far up that way and over. Barney's Beanery, Norton Avenue house, Doors Workshop, all that fun stuff. But now we're gonna head over to another place called Canter's Deli. So hey, if you're still with us, thank you. You must be a huge Doors fan, as we are. Yeah, Jim Morrison and the Doors. Actually, it's the Doors, just the Doors, because there was an incident, maybe Cleveland, where they were announced as Jim Morrison and the Doors, and Jim ran out there and said, "No, man, it's just the Doors." And he made the guy announce them again. So yes, it is the Doors. Jim Morrison, Ray Manzarek, Robbie Krieger, and John Densmore at the Blue Boar Restaurant, 1971, 1015 Crescent Heights Boulevard, West Hollywood, California. All right, y'all, let's head over to Canter's Deli. Right here at 419 Fairfax Avenue is Canter's Deli, open 24 hours. John Densmore wrote in his book that they would come here at 2 a.m. after the clubs would close. They said it's the best deli on the West Coast, and that there was more food thrown around than what was eaten at times. And they get loud, they get crazy, they'd get obnoxious, and they'd get thrown out. But as you can see by this line here, that this might just be the best deli on the West Coast. All of these people are waiting to get in to the deli. Canter's, 419 North Fairfax Avenue. Open all night. Show you a quick shot of the menu. Maybe we'll take a picture of that. And look at all these things here. Oh man. I can see why this is the best place on the West Coast. Canter's on Fairfax. Check it out, y'all. John Densmore said it's the best. But we are definitely not waiting in that line, because the line even goes behind me in the other direction. Finally stopped raining, but we're still soaking wet. So hey, we're gonna head up to Sunset Boulevard, check out some more spots. Let's go. Sunset Boulevard, and the sun is coming out. That'll hopefully dry things up. We got pretty soaking wet this morning. But we're standing here at 8171 Sunset Boulevard. Back in January 1967, Jack Holzman, president of Elektra Records, decided to put the Doors' debut album up on that billboard right there, facing towards the east. No one had ever done that before, and it was so successful that they left the billboard up there for 11 months. So pretty much for all of 1967, people driving west on Sunset Boulevard, right by the Chateau Marmont, they would see the Doors' debut album. And as we spin around and head east on Sunset Boulevard, we will come to another billboard that was used in 1971 when LA Woman was released in April of 71. And right up here at the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Crescent Heights Boulevard, we have a billboard facing the west. The Doors' debut album, Billboard, in 1967, faced the east. So this billboard right over here. The Residence. Netflix. That billboard that you see right there faces to the west. And like I mentioned, the other billboard faces to the east. John Densmore quoted, "The entrance to Laurel Canyon was like a shrine to me, where Jim, Robby, and I had lived, bookends to our career. The Doors, our first album, Billboard." Ooh, it's getting bright now. I can't even barely see. There we go. Billy brightened it up for me. First album, Billboard, faced the east. The rising sun. The Occidental. The land that they conquered. And the LA Woman faces the west. The setting sun. The end of Western civilization and the end of our public life as a group. 1971, LA Woman Billboard, facing the west. Around the corner here, just down Sunset Boulevard, is the Netflix billboard right there. One faces the east, the other faces the west. And now we will spin around, head back this way, and we're gonna head up to the Canyon Country Store and the Love Street House. So stay tuned for that. The sun is coming out, and it's gonna be a beautiful day. One more shot of the billboard that was LA Woman in 1971. All right, up the hill we go, Billy. Let's get it. All right, y'all, we just got to a very exciting location that I've been wanting to go to for a very long time, because this was immortalized in the Doors song, Love Street. This is the store where the creatures meet. I wonder what they do in there. Summer Sunday and a year. And as we peek over the edge, you can see Pam and Jim's Love Street house right there by those beautiful flowers. And we will walk over there in just a little bit. But first, we are going to go take a quick little tour of the Canyon Country Store. And this is a store in Laurel Canyon where all of the rock stars in this area would go to. Not only Jim Morrison, but Joni Mitchell, Frank Zappa. Mama Cass used to live in the basement, which is now an Italian restaurant. And fun fact, when we got a lift ride up here to the Canyon Country Store, the woman that gave us a lift ride, her brother owns that Italian restaurant. So how cool is that? So as we walk, it has been said that a little jam session would break out right here on this patio.
at the corner of Laurel Canyon Boulevard in Kirkwood. Could you imagine 1966, 67, 68? Man, I feel like I was born in the wrong decade. But this is so cool. You are here. Yes, I am. Man. And I wonder how much of this is original from the 60s. Oh, dude, Billy, check this out. There it is, the store where the creatures meet. In 1968, the Canyon Country Store was immortalized as the store where the creatures meet in the Doors' #1 hit, Love Street. The song was written about the characters who passed through the store and lived on and around Rothdell Trail, where Doors lead singer Jim Morrison lived for a time with his girlfriend Pam Corson. I see you live on Love Street. There's a store where the creatures meet. I wonder what they do in there. Summer Sunday and a year. Love Street was released on the Doors' #1 album, Waiting for the Sun, on July 3rd, 1968. Ooh, July 3rd. That's a little bit morbid, being that was the day that Jim passed 3 years later. And it says, scan this with your Shazam app to learn more. Might have to get that Shazam app. Alright, so we're going to walk in here. I'm going to lower my voice, and we're just going to take a look around. Ooh, t-shirts. Look at that. Oh, here's your guy.
That's cool.
Filmed here at the Canyon Country Store. Wow. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Steven Tyler. Mamas and the Papas. Ooh, there's the Doors up there on the top. Jim. Wow. Joni Mitchell. This is so cool. Oh, man. Wow. Coca-Cola shoot on Brooks Avenue. We're going to go there tomorrow. We are Laurel Canyon. Morning. That is so cool. I'm sure Jim bought some alcohol here a time or two. They all shop for their groceries here. Came down out of the Hollywood Hills. Right here. It's all gathered mid to late 60s into the early 70s. Groceries that you want, all the groceries that you need. Alright, there's a quick little little tour of the Canyon Country Store. A little bit, I should say a lot, of memorabilia in here, along with groceries. I'm gonna grab a little beverage, get a little something to drink, and then we're gonna head out and around down those stairs to the Love Street house. Let's go. Alright, we are walking down the stairs at the Canyon Country Store. And as we walk down, you see an entrance right there. And this is currently an Italian restaurant. Back in the mid to late 60s, Mama Cass actually lived down here in this basement. And fun fact for today, when we took a lift ride up here to the Canyon Country Store, the woman that gave us a ride, her name was Tammy. And Tammy told us that her brother owns this Italian restaurant. I'm like, what are the odds? We take a lift ride to the Canyon Country Store, and the person that gives us a ride has a connection to the Italian restaurant that is underneath here. And you can see there are pictures. People have written all over those bricks. And if I walk over this way real quick and show you this Love Street. That says Tavern TR, Terrace, Trail, maybe Trail. So look at that. Immortalized by the song Love Street. Oh, old school Porsche perhaps. So now we are gonna walk to the Love Street house, which, as you see right here, Canyon Country Store is right there. And I'm actually gonna take a peek at this sign. I didn't see this sign before. So let's take a look at this sign right here and see what that says. Oh, yep, all right. I'm glad I walked over here. Love Street was written by the Doors about Rothdell Trail and the surrounding area in Laurel Canyon, where lead singer Jim Morrison and his girlfriend Pamela Corson resided. The song appears on their third album, Waiting for the Sun. The Doors are one of the most influential American groups in rock and roll history and embody the communal and psychedelic spirit of the 60s that Cole, I don't know, Cole. Hey, Catfish Billy. Hey. Koalist? I don't know, in Laurel Canyon, whatever. They did some things here. Ah, peace sign windows up there. The details. And these guys, we just met these guys. They're from the UK. Michael and Adam. See, I told you I remember. You just got to tell me like 3, 4, 5, or 6 times. But they're going to the Robby Krieger show tonight. And right over here, next to the Canyon Country Store, is the Love Street house. Is that the same sign I just read? Yep. I think it looks like it. Yeah, I'm not going to read that again. All right. Michael may be just as obsessed about the Doors as I am. But I might even be a little bit more obsessed because there were some locations that he didn't even know about. Morrison House,
parking only, 8021 Rothdell Trail. All others will be towed. And sadly, right around this area, there was a Mazda Miata that someone lit on fire. Fucking arsonists, pardon my French. But they lit the car on fire right here in this location. And that spread to the house because back when Jim and Pam lived here, and then back when it started on fire, it was basically made of wood, correct, Michael? Basically all wood on the exterior. So that went up very, very quickly. Did you walk back this way, Michael? Because I saw that there was I don't know if we'll be able to see anything, but they had an outdoor space. No, we're definitely not going to be able to see that. Because it was right up there. Oh, the Lizard King. Look at that. Alright, maybe Michael might be a little bit more obsessed with than I am. I don't have a Doors tattoo yet. Yet, Michael. But my wife, Heather, yeah. She shuts me down. I start talking about the Doors, she doesn't want to hear it. She's like, I love this for you, but... Sounds familiar. But from what I heard, this was kind of called Love Street because they were walking like the Flower Children. Yeah. They would walk right down this hill, right down towards the Canyon Country Store.
Where the creatures meet.
Yes. Immortalized. Oh man, it would be so cool to get in there. Knock on the door. No, I'm not going to do that. We'll be respectful. Yeah, no pun intended.
Puns everywhere with that word.
Yep, exactly. But right here. And yes, it's very similar. And I think that bell is still the original, isn't it? Are you... I heard that the bell might still be original, but obviously exterior, concrete, stucco, definitely, you know, it was a big fire. And sadly, it was destroyed, but the structure is basically the same. Oh, and when they remodeled the bathroom, and brought it down, there was yellow tile down to the original that had some graffiti written on it. Did you hear that? So there was a lot of that in there, but I've seen videos where they give a tour of the inside, and it's different. It's not the same, but a lot of places are not the same that they were in the 60s. So, yeah, take it how it is, but we're here. Those balconies were there, and it's just like, how many songs did he write on those balconies? Watching over the Canyon Country Store. Do you know of any specific songs that may have been written?
Only Love Street, but it was
Well, yes.
waiting for the Sun album. He was working on here, Soft Parade album, so tracks on those albums.
Okay.
And it was known that they would argue, Jim and Pam, and he'd end up having his clothes thrown from the balcony.
Oh, yeah.
And all the neighbours would hear it as well and be like, oh shit.
Yep. Oh, and even at location, and I think it was Ray that said it didn't happen, but I think Henry Diltz said it did happen, where Jim put Pam in the closet and lit it on fire.
Yeah.
Ray said it didn't happen, but I think it was Henry Diltz, the photographer, lived nearby, and Pam ran over to his house and told him everything of what just happened.
Yeah.
So I know Ray always wants to think the best of his buddy Jim and be like, oh, that didn't happen, but Henry Diltz says otherwise. So we'll leave that for y'all to decide whether that's true or not. I know there were a lot of inaccuracies in the Doors movie. Ray Manzarek was angry about some of the things and how they portrayed Jim. But you'll also see a lot of videos of Jim just riding his bicycle down these hills, around these hills. But now we're gonna head up to Ray and Robby's house on Lookout Mountain. We're gonna go to Inspirational Point, where People Are Strange was written, in the Wonderland Avenue house. So hey, come on with us, let's go. 8632 Wonderland Avenue. Right here at this house, Ray Manzarek lived with Danny Sugarman, and Iggy Pop visited and rehearsed with Ray Manzarek because Iggy Pop may have potentially been the next lead singer of his next project. And while we're here, are you okay to be on camera? So this is the current owner who is selling. What's your name, sir?
Chad.
Nice to meet you. What information do you have about this house?
Well, just that, so according to Danny Sugarman's book, Wonderland, he bought this, he and Ray Manzarek needed a place to rehearse. So he and Ray bought this place. Danny stayed here primarily. Ray lived somewhere else with his wife. Carefully, hard to find it. And this is where the debauchery supposedly all happened with, and Iggy Pop, which was very close to both of those guys, but Danny Sugarman was his publicist. He'd stay here when he'd ever be in LA.
Okay.
And, so just different stories in the book.
All right.
How much of it is true?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Exactly.
All right, there it is, y'all. 8632 Wonderland Avenue. All right, we're heading up to John and Robby's house on Lookout Mountain, and then Inspirational Point. Come along. 8826 Lookout Mountain Avenue. This is where John Densmore and Robby Krieger lived in the late 60s. Jim came here one day, sad, depressed, and was kind of talking about his feelings, which was out of the ordinary for Jim. He kind of kept to himself about a lot of those things. But he came here, sad, depressed, started talking, and decided that he was going to take a walk right up Lookout Mountain Avenue to Inspirational Point. And that's where he wrote the lyrics for People Are Strange. So we will head up there, take a look at those views. Right here at 8826 Lookout Mountain Avenue. Robby Krieger and John Densmore lived here. And there's also one story that Jim stopped by here, and on the back side of the house, he jumped off the balcony, jumped off the deck, and was just kind of hanging over the edge by his fingertips, which he was kind of famous or infamous of doing that. So John Densmore and Robby Krieger's house right here, 8826 Lookout Mountain Avenue. Let's head up the hill to Inspirational Point and check out those views. So on that day, Jim Morrison walked up here to 2375 Sunset Plaza Drive. Right here, Jim wrote, "People are strange." And then he walked down the hill back to John and Robby's house at 8826 Lookout Mountain Avenue. And they put it all together. Words and music. Wow. Inspirational Point is what they call this right here. 2375.
Sunset Plaza Drive. Amazing. Very inspirational. Pun intended. Inspirational view. Right here. Jim Morrison wrote, "People are strange. When you're a stranger, faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down. When you're strange, faces come out of the rain." Alright, y'all. Doesn't get much better than that. I'd have to say best views of Los Angeles right here. So we're gonna head back down the hill, go to Sunset Boulevard, show you more of where the Doors walked, talked, played, sang, all kinds of chaos. Let's roll down the hill, tuck and roll, baby, let's get it. Here we are at the Chateau Marmont, West Hollywood, California. When Jim wasn't at the Tropicana or at Alta Cienega, he would stay here from time to time. And there is a story that he tried jumping from a rooftop to a balcony. Have you heard that story? Where he jumped from a rooftop to a balcony or something? Somewhere around here. Don't know exactly where it happened here at the Chateau Marmont. But with Jim's crazy antics, not only hanging off the edge of a balcony by his fingertips, but this specific incident at the Chateau Marmont involved him jumping from a rooftop to a balcony or something along those lines, and he did not make it. He fell 2 stories, I believe, landed on his back, which caused chronic pain for the remainder of his life. It's like, was it up there? I know I've seen footage from movies that have been shot up there, but as far as specifically where did Jim Morrison jump from the balcony to another balcony or a rooftop to a balcony, we're not sure. So if anyone watching this knows any specific details about that incident here at the Chateau Marmont, which I think we can get a good shot right up here, Chateau Marmont entrance. And as a lot of you may know, this is also where John Belushi OD'd. Speedball, heroin, cocaine. So this right here is actually John Belushi's bungalow where he passed away and where you can see footage of him being hauled out. This is bungalow number 3 right here. And then bungalow number 3 parking as we come down. We will not be able to get in there. They are very strict with who goes in there. So garage, Chateau Marmont, only the rich and famous get access into that place. It's like at least $800 a night. So 8221 Sunset Boulevard, Chateau Marmont. There's a sign right there as well that you can see coming down Sunset Boulevard. So hey, we're gonna whip around here, head down Sunset Boulevard and see what we can see. Let's go. Right here at 8225 Sunset Boulevard was the Imperial Gardens Japanese restaurant. It is currently tequila, cerveza, quesadillas. It is obviously no longer the Imperial Gardens Japanese restaurant, but the building does still exist. For lease, restaurant available. Back in 1969, when the Doors were recording Roadhouse Blues, specifically November 4th and November 5th of 1969, they got to the harmonica part. Jim was kind of messing around, making stuff up. You know, he really couldn't play any instruments, but that definitely didn't stop him from trying. You know, he pounded around on the piano from time to time as well. But for Roadhouse Blues, John Sebastian came in, played harmonica, sounded great. Then they came to the Imperial Gardens. Let's continue heading west on Sunset Boulevard. What's next, Catfish Billy? Let's go check it out. Sunset Boulevard. This spot right here at 8270, which no longer exists. This building is now 8272, but it was right here on July 5th, 1968, that the Doors and the Rolling Stones ate here. Right before the Hollywood Bowl show. There were so many people that they had to have two separate tables. Stones showed up in a Cadillac. Robby thought that was pretty fancy. Thought maybe they were selling out, but excused it as possibly just being a rental. But yeah, right here, 8270 was Moo Ling's restaurant. July 5th, 1968. The Doors and the Rolling Stones. Moo Ling's Chinese restaurant. Right before the Hollywood Bowl show. Alright, y'all. Now we're gonna head up Sunset to the next stop. Let's go. Walking down Sunset Boulevard, we come to 8401, which was the Continental Hyatt House Hotel, now the Andaz. But this was referred to as the Riot House when Jim Morrison was here. He was banned from this hotel because he kept hanging off the balcony by his fingertips. And now, it doesn't even look like there's any balconies. So I wonder if that's the Jim Morrison effect. Is remove the balconies. Oh, they even have the Riot House bar and restaurant. Oh man, it's the Jim Morrison effect, I tell you. That is crazy. So yeah, right here, currently the Andaz, formerly the Continental Hyatt House Hotel. And
Jim Morrison got banned from hanging off the balconies by his fingertips, which he was infamous of doing. Sometimes naked. And right next door, we have the Comedy Store, which was previously Ciro's, but also became the Kaleidoscope, correct? I believe for a period of time. The Kaleidoscope at Ciro's before this became the Comedy Store. And the Doors did play here. And since it became the Comedy Store, it's just, wow. Just look at these names. I'm not even gonna begin. Oh, Daniel Tosh, that one popped off. He's a funny dude. But it's just like, oh, Richard Pryor, Red Fox, David Letterman, Jay Leno. Holy crap, the list goes on. Well, and of course, John Belushi.
Mitzi Shore.
Oh, yeah, Mitzi. R.I.P.
Her and Sonny.
Yep, Paulie. Paulie, are you here? Paulie? Paulie? No, I don't think he's here. All right. Oh, there he is right there. Paulie Shore, Martin Lawrence. All of that. Oh, that was last night. What did we miss last night?
Whitney Cummings.
Whitney Cummings. I have Cummings as cousins. No pun intended. All right, y'all. That is formerly Ciro's, Kaleidoscope at Ciro's, right next to the Continental Hyatt House Hotel. Currently the Andaz, and all the balconies have been removed because Jim Morrison used to hang off of those balconies by fingertips. So hey, we're gonna continue walking down Santa Monica. We're not in Santa Monica though.
We're on Sunset.
We're on Sunset. And it's sunny, finally. All right, y'all, let's go. Right here across the street at 8424 was the Renaissance Jazz Club. Currently does not exist. This large building currently does. John Densmore saw so many amazing jazz musicians. Miles Davis, John Coltrane. And now it is, I don't know if this is a hotel, Pender Residencies. Yep, it is. So they tore down the Renaissance Jazz Club and built residences. 8424 was the Renaissance Jazz Club that John Densmore used to go to with his friend Grant. We're going to continue right up Sunset Boulevard. Let's go. Right across the street here at 8516, what was formerly the Sea Witch. The Doors played here in 1966. In 2013, the building was demolished and the building that you see now was built. So right here on this spot, 8516 Sunset Boulevard, the Doors played in the December of 1966. All right, we're gonna continue our walk down Sunset Boulevard. Let's go. Right here on Sunset Boulevard, 8782. Back in July of 1971, this was the Old World Restaurant. Jim died in July 3rd, 1971. And then shortly after, you know, Ray, John, and Robby needed to stay busy, keep their mind occupied. So they went to the Doors workshop and they rehearsed. But then they took a dinner break and came here to this building, the Old World Restaurant, which is now currently the State Social House. But when Ray, John, and Robby came here during their dinner, over the radio, it interrupted and said, breaking news, Jim Morrison of the Doors, dead at 27. No further details at this time. You know, the guys looked around to see if anyone recognized them. And for a change, no one did. So this is where John, Robby, and Ray had a dinner break. Shortly after they found out Jim Morrison, their lead singer, was gone. 8782 West Sunset Boulevard was the Old World Restaurant. And now we're gonna head just up the road here where Jim had a residence, because I found a driver's license that had 8721 West Sunset Boulevard. So we're gonna head up here and we're gonna check that out. Let's go. We have arrived to 8721 West Sunset Boulevard. And for a period of time, Jim lived here. He had a driver's license that had 8721 West Sunset Boulevard on it. This is a picture of that driver's license right here. I don't know who he lived with. I don't know if it was Ronnie Herron, the booking agent from the whiskey, or if it was one of his other girlfriends, because he did not live here with Pam, as far as I know. So if you're watching this video and you happen to know any details of who Jim lived with at 8721 West Sunset Boulevard, any information would be much appreciated. So we will continue down Sunset Boulevard, and then we're gonna head out to Santa Monica and Venice Beach. Let's go. Warrow's Liquor, 8850 Sunset Boulevard. Back in 1966 and 1967, this was Turner's liquor store, T-E-R-N-E-R-S, Turner's. And this was a liquor store that Jim Morrison would come to often when they were performing on the Strip, due to its convenience in proximity to the Whiskey A Go-Go right there. The London Fog was just up the street from the Whiskey at 8919 in 1966. And then they played a little bit further down at Gazzari's in 1967. So between the London Fog of 66, early 66, and then the Whiskey, May through August of 66, and then Gazzari's early 67, this would have been Jim's liquor store. Currently Roro's, previously Turner's, at 8850 Sunset Boulevard, right next to the Viper Room. Alright, y'all, we're almost done with Sunset Strip. We just have a few more to hit. Going east. We'll check you later. Here we are at the Viper Room on the Sunset Strip. Fun fact about the Doors movie, for the London Fog footage, they did not go to 8919 Sunset Boulevard because it was a barber shop and it would have taken too much work, too much money to renovate, remodel, make it look like the London fog that it was back in 1966. So Oliver Stone shot the London fog footage right here at the Viper Room. And if you watch the movie, at the part where they are walking right here towards the Viper Room, and they have a 60s looking awning and everything coming out, but they are walking west on Sunset Boulevard, and in that footage you can see the Whiskey A Go-Go in the background. So that is just one of the inaccuracies of the Doors movie that has been pointed out, because the Whiskey A Go-Go, as you can see off in the distance here, is 8901 Sunset Boulevard, and the London fog was at 8919. But like I said, it took too much work
The entrance is on the side. Oh, it's on the side. It's like, wait,
to change that location, so they shot it here. We'll bring you inside so you can take a look at the stage setup, how it looks, and then take a look at that footage in the Doors movie and see if you can recognize the stage, the bar, and the setup. But you definitely will be able to see the whiskey in the background when they are walking towards the quote-unquote London fog in the movie. So there it is. We'll show you the inside stage setup. Let's get inside.
All right, y'all. So this is where Oliver Stone recorded the live London fog footage for the 1991 The Doors movie. And when The Doors were playing at the London fog back in 1966, that's when Jim was facing the band. He wasn't facing the crowd. So that allowed to give him a little bit of courage to turn around and face the audience.
Walking down the Sunset Strip, we come to 8919 West Sunset Boulevard. This is the site of the London Fog, 1966. This is where the Doors got their very first paying gig. We can't see anything in there, but in early 1966 they got an audition here because Jesse James was the owner, and Jim and Ray and Robby and John, they invited all of their friends from college, their classmates, people they knew, and they packed this place that very first night. So therefore, they got the job at the London Fog as the house band in early 1966. So it was here that the Doors played their songs over and over and over again and basically practiced. They rehearsed. This is where Jim got the courage to turn around and face the crowd. 8919. And just down the street at 8901 is the Whiskey A Go-Go. So it was later on in 1966 that the London Fog was having financial problems. The Doors really weren't bringing in anywhere near the crowd that they were that very first night. So Jesse James had to let them go. But thankfully, Ronnie Herron, who was booking bands at the Whiskey, kind of had a little crush on Jim. So that very night, Ronnie Herron then signed the Doors to be the house band at the Whiskey A Go-Go later in 1966. But it was this place where they really got their start. They'd played a couple gigs here and there at some high schools and, you know, their parents' little events, but this was their first paying gig. $5 a person. $5 a person is all they got. Right in here. I wish we could go in, but it's just gonna look like a barbershop because that's what it is right now. But back in 1966, this was the location of the London Fog. So hey, we're gonna walk down the street and we're gonna check out the whiskey. Because later on in 1966, they became the house band and they opened for Buffalo Springfield, Love, and they played those songs over and over again. Light My Fire, Moonlight Drive. Basically the songs that appeared on the first two albums. So it was here in 1966 at the Whiskey A Go-Go. Since opening in 1964, the Whiskey A Go-Go has been one of the world's most prominent and important rock and roll venues. Its stage has served as the launching pad for generations of music legends, including Johnny Rivers, Frank Zappa, Love, The Doors, Buffalo Springfield, Guns N' Roses, and Motley Crue, just to name a few. But there was one night here, August 21st, 1966. The doors opened up and Jim did not show up for the first set. John, Robby, and Ray continued on without him and they played the first set as a trio. But the manager of the club was angry because they were paying for 4 guys and there was only 3. So Ray, John, Robby had to go find Jim. And they found him at the Tropicana Hotel over on Santa Monica Boulevard in room 203, 1,000 mics of LSD, wearing only underwear and boots, hiding under the bed. They got him back here for the second set, and Jim wanted to play the end. Not at the end of the set, but at the beginning of the set. And everyone was like, we play that at the end. Well, that is the night. Jim went through the Oedipal complex. Mother, I want to. You know how it goes. Father, I want to kill you. Well, in the movie anyway, which, yes, there's a lot of inaccuracies, but it shows him being thrown out the back door, and then it shows him climbing up on the fence right here. And that was the night they actually got signed by Elektra. You know, Jack Holzman was at that show. And according to the movie, very inaccurate at parts, but they basically got signed by Elektra that night, August 21st, 1966. Manager at the Whiskey said they're fired, and then Robby's like, wait a second, it's Thursday. Are we fired tonight, or do you want us to play through the weekend? And they ended up playing through the weekend. It was Thursday the 21st, so you have 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So it would have been Sunday, August 24th, would have been the very last day that the Doors played here in 1966. We'll give you some inside footage, give you a little tour around the club. Obviously, it looks a lot different than it did back in 1966. But the inside is still very historic. There's memorabilia all over. So we'll take a walk inside, show you what's up, check it out. Stay tuned. Here we are at the iconic Whiskey A Go-Go for Robby Krieger of The Doors' LA Woman. This is the 60th anniversary of The Doors show. Show number 2. First show was last month, the debut album, and now tonight we'll be playing LA Woman in its entirety. So hey, stay tuned. Whiskey A Go-Go, 8901 Sunset Boulevard on the Sunset Strip. Let's get it, y'all. Stay tuned. Robby Krieger. Well, from what I've been hearing, this line is pretty long here, right around the Whiskey. Wow, right up Clark Street. Look at that. Dang. Alright, y'all. You see it. Sold out. Robby Krieger of The Doors. LA Woman, Whiskey A Go-Go. Let's get it. It was right here on May 23rd, 1966. A band called The Doors from Venice became the house band at 8901 West Sunset Boulevard. They played through the summer into August. The Oedipal complex was inserted. They were fired. The end. Right over here is the Roxy. Back in 1974, this is where Robby Krieger and John Densmore's new band called The Butts Band played their first show in 1974. Robby Krieger, John Densmore, and The Butts Band at the Roxy, 1974. Probably can't really see anything into there. Pretty dark, pretty dark. Oh, we got some bathrooms in there you can see. What's that on the wall? Photos. All right. And then the Roxy is right next to the Rainbow. Right here across the street at 9000 West Sunset Boulevard is a place where a few Doors-related events happened. Back in 1967, when they were rehearsing and doing the lip sync recording for a show called Malibu U, Jim did not show up. So instead, they had Robby Krieger's twin brother, Ron, stand in with his back to the camera. And then later on that day, Al Burton brought Jim right up to the roof, put the same shirt on Jim that Ron was wearing, and did that shoot. In 1969, this was also a place where Highway, a scene at the top where Jim was walking the ledge, which he was known to do. Walk the ledge, hang off the balcony, all kinds of crazy stuff. But right here, he walked the ledge for Highway in 1969 at 9000 West Sunset Boulevard. Here we go. We're moving on to the next one. Right here at 9039 used to be Gazzari's. And in January of 1967, when they released their first debut album, The Doors played here. They had a residency. They played 11 nights in a row. And it is now Keys Club. And Robby actually has played here since the doors. But back in 1967, 9039 was Gazzari's, where the doors played 11 days in a row to a packed club at Gazzari's. And is now the Key Club. Alright. So we're heading back down Sunset Boulevard. We're gonna go check out the Old Turner Liquor Store. Let's roll. Alright, y'all. This spot that we're coming to right now, over here with Catfish Billy, it's kind of a sad, somber spot. We are on, and we are here at 108 North Sycamore. This is where Pamela Corson moved in 1971 after Jim Morrison died in Paris. She lived here with friends, and she would always speak about Jim in the first person. She would always talk to the dog as if it was Jim. I know she was grieving the loss of her boyfriend, of her husband, of her soulmate. She was depressed. She was sad. She was grieving. Today is actually April 25th, 2025. And in this day, in 1974, is when Pamela Corson passed away from an overdose of heroin. She had called some friends the night before, Tom Baker, to set up a meeting for the 25th. She wanted to talk about moving to a ranch where Babe Hill would run the ranch. But she never made it to that meeting. They found her on April 25th, 1974, and it was determined that she had overdosed from heroin, China White, the same heroin that is rumored to have ended Jim Morrison's life. She didn't show up to the meeting, and even her roommates, they thought she was sleeping on the couch, so they just kind of left her there. But then they discovered that she was not sleeping, that she had passed away. So we wanted to come here to 108 North Sycamore to pay our respects on the 51st anniversary of Pamela Corson's passing. Moment of silence. Thanks for watching, y'all. Find peace and comfort that Jim and Pam are together. Let's move on to the next spot. We're gonna walk up Sycamore and head towards the old Poppy Studios. So hang with us, stay tuned for more. And this is the Tie-Dyed Traveling Guy coming to you from 108 North Sycamore, which is just off the corner of 1st Street and North Sycamore. All right, heading up to Poppy Studio. All right, our next stop brings us to 7317 Romaine Street in Hollywood, California. This building was Poppy Studios. Back in 1971, this is where the Doors and Bruce Botnick put the final touches on the 6th and final album with Jim Morrison. LA Woman was finished here in this building, which is completely surrounded. I don't know if we can get up high enough to maybe get a shot over. But that is the building. And Jim was not present for the finishing touches. You know, they mixed LA Woman here, and he had taken off for Paris, which was odd because he always stuck around to make sure that his vocals were the way that he wanted them to sound. But he took off for Paris. And this was a fairly new studio in 1971, and it was one of Bruce Botnick's favorites after he recorded Mark Bano there the previous year. Collaboration with Bano is what motivated Botnick to recommend the Doors to bring in Bano to play rhythm guitar on LA Woman. And this is also the location where the photographer Wendell Hammock shot the photos for LA Woman album cover. And a few years after Jim's death, this location was purchased by Motown. And over the next few years, iconic artists such as Marvin Gaye, Diana Ross, Rick James recorded music here. And then Motown sold the building in the 1990s. And then until recently, this location housed the Signet Soundolo Studios. And it's closed for renovations, as you can see. 24-hour surveillance. You really can't see anything in here. If we can... No, nothing in there. So hopefully this is giving some good video of 7317 Romaine Street, which is actually on the corner of Romaine and Fuller. All right, y'all, we're gonna head up to Sunset Boulevard and check out Sunset Sound, among other locations from the Doors. So, all right, y'all, heading up Fuller, heading towards Sunset Boulevard. So, Catfish Billy. Oh, he's warming up. Yeah, it's warming up here in Cali now. It was a little chilly this morning, but that sun's coming out. All right, Sunset Boulevard, let's do it. All right, y'all, we are now at 6920 Sunset Boulevard. It is now a Toyota dealership, but once upon a time, this was the World Pacific Recording Studios. And in July of 1965, Dick Bach owed Ray Manzarek 3 hours of studio time. So Ray wanted to get the Doors in here to get some songs down on acetate so they could see and hear how they sound. So there was 6 songs that they recorded, and there were 5 members of the Doors at that time. It was Jim Morrison, Ray Manzarek, John Densmore, Rick Manzarek, and Jim Manzarek. They recorded 6 songs: Moonlight Drive, My Eyes Have Seen You, Summer's Almost Gone, End of the Night, Hello, I Love You, Go Insane. Pretty sure that was 6. Moonlight Drive, End of the Night, Summer's Almost Gone, Hello, I Love You, Go Insane, and My Eyes Have Seen You were recorded right in this building in the summer of 1965. And then after they made that acetate and had 6 songs down, they drove all over town trying to get their music played, trying to get signed. And they did end up getting signed by Columbia Records, but they were eventually dropped. We'll be heading up to Columbia Records here in just a little bit. Not much left inside this building since it is now a Toyota dealership. But once upon a time, in the summer of 1965, the Doors recorded their first demo right here in this building. So hey, we're gonna head up Sunset Boulevard. We're gonna check out a total of 12 locations. Sorry about that. Can't control the traffic though. But all right, heading up this way, and we'll check in at the next spot. Here we are at 1441 McCadden, which was previously TTG Studios. It was in this building that the Doors recorded their 3rd album, Waiting for the Sun, in 1968. They would have walked right through those doors right there, right up that sidewalk from Sunset Boulevard is right up there. So we're about a half a block down McCadden. And they would have maybe parked back here. And recorded somewhere in that building. And TTG does not stand for Two Terrible Guys, as you may have heard. It actually stands for Tilhas TZ Geschäften, which is a group created after World War II to track down Nazis. And although TTG was known for being one of the first studios that had a 16-track, the Doors recorded Waiting for the Sun with the 8-track. They just didn't want to make it any more complicated than they had to, because the first 2 albums, the debut and People Are Strange, they recorded that on 4-track, so they're like, 8-track? This is great. And the Doors photographer, Paul Ferreira, was also here to document the recording sessions at TTG. And I don't know if there's really anything you can't really see in there, but it is now Shooting Star International. So 1968, Waiting for the Sun, 1441 McCadden, right next to the current Chick-fil-A, half a block, right off of Sunset Boulevard. So hey, we're heading back out to Sunset right now. We're gonna cruise up to that next spot. We still got Catfish Billy hanging back here. He's a trooper. We're gonna get some scooters here in a little bit, but there's a lot of locations.
Chaos here.
It is, it's insane. Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood, California. Today, April 25th, 2025. And as I recorded in another video, we did go to Pamela Corson's 108 North Sycamore to pay our respects on the 51st anniversary of her passing. Right next to TTG Studios, we have what is currently the Chick-fil-A at 6750 Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. And as the Doors were recording Waiting for the Sun in 1968, literally right around the corner down McFadden, half a block. 1968, they recorded Waiting for the Sun, but right here at this location, it was Stan's Drive-In, which was a car hop 50s anachronism of Suzy Q fries, patty melts, and cherry lime rickies. Hot rods, California style, good stuff. So this is where they would eat when they would take a break in 1968. This was Stan's Drive-In. As you can tell, it is currently a Chick-fil-A. So Stan's Drive-In no longer exists, but it was on the corner of Highland and Sunset. All right, let's keep this party moving, y'all. Right over across the street here at 6725 Sunset Boulevard used to be the Bit Jazz Club that John Densmore would go to with his friend Grant. And that's what gave him the jazz influence that he brought into the Doors. And if I zoom in here, you may or may not be able to see that is currently the Catalina Jazz Club. So it has maintained a jazz club from the 60s all the way to present day. 6725 Sunset Boulevard is the former location of the Bit Jazz Club, John Densmore and his friend Grant. So we're gonna head back up this way, east on Sunset Boulevard. We're gonna head to Sunset Sound Recording Studios next. Here we go. We have come to one of the most famous recording studios, definitely in Hollywood, if not the world. Sunset Sound Recording Studio on Sunset Boulevard, 6650 Sunset Sound. So this would have been the parking lot that the Doors would have entered into to record their debut album, which came out January 4th, 1967, and then shortly followed up People Are Strange. Both released in 1967 because they'd been playing those songs at the London Fog, at the Whiskey, so they'd already been practicing. They went in, boom, knocked it out. But not just the Doors, Janis Joplin, Led Zeppelin, Prince recorded here multiple times, Elton John. Catfish Billy had to bring Taylor Swift into the conversation, which, yeah, she's very talented. So this is the spot. We'll walk around to the front here. You can see it's heavily protected. Razor wire. Maybe because after the Doors recorded Light My Fire, Jim, high on LSD, tripping balls, had to come back to Sunset Sound because he thought the studio was on fire. So he climbed the fence. I don't know if it was one of these fences, but he got back into the studio and he took a fire extinguisher, sprayed down all of the equipment, sprayed down the recording room. I guess Light My Fire was just too hot and he had to put it out. But what got him busted was that when he climbed back over that fence, one of his boots got stuck. And pretty sure it was Paul Rothchild recognized that boot. And he knew that was Jim's boot. And Paul Rothchild contacted Jack Holzman of Elektra Records, and Jack paid for everything. had all of the equipment cleaned up, and Jim Morrison didn't even remember doing it. Sunset Sound. And this was also the last place that Janis Joplin recorded. And then she went to Barney's Beanery, had some drinks, had some chili, went back to the Landmark Hotel and sadly overdosed on heroin. I believe it was October 4th, 1970. And right here across the street is a church that Jim loved to go visit. I'll zoom back a little bit. But he would go inside that church and he would just sit in the pews and he would just admire the architecture. He would admire the stained glass windows. And he would sometimes climb up into that steeple way at the top there. And that would look over Sunset Boulevard. And that church is literally right across the street. I believe that is 6657. And that is the Blessed Sacrament, potato, Catholic Church. It's just beautiful to look at. I'm standing out here, so I can't imagine what it looks like inside. I don't know. Oh, it does say no trespassing on there, so no, we cannot go inside. And that was right next to the Blessed Sacrament School. So, all right, we're gonna keep heading down and see what we have to see next. So, hey, Billy's back there taking some photos, document the situation. Sunset Sound. And the Blessed Sacrament Catholic Church and the school right next door. All right. We're gonna hop on those scooters here in a little bit, but we got a couple more stops on Sunset Boulevard, so stay tuned and we'll see what we can see. All right, right here on Cosmo Street, 1608 was Bvld, which is where the Doors played in 1966. The specific dates are unknown, but right here, heavily protected, is the entrance to the venue, which is located down the alleyway, dubbed Cosmo's Alley, where audiences gather to hear the performers. Right through there. Sadly, we cannot get in there, back there, anywhere in there. But this was 1608, Cosmo Street, Bvld's. That was the entrance. So within this building here, if I zoom back, the Doors played here. Love was also the house band at Bvld's in 1966. And that is who so we're just walking around to see if we can see anything into Bvld's, but it doesn't look like we can. This is a sound factory. Studio A, Studio B, so there is still something going on in here that is music related. This is 6357 Selma Avenue, which is right around the corner from Bvld's. So hey, we are now heading east, and we will check out the next spot. Stay tuned. And right here, 1608 Cahuenga is what used to be Shelley's Manhole Jazz Club. This was one of John Densmore's favorite jazz clubs that he went to. It was very expensive, but they scrounged up the money somehow to come see some shows here. They were obsessed with meeting girls, but jazz was their substitute. His buddy Grant dragged him to see Bill Evans 5 or 6 times. And Kerouac, Cassidy saw Charlie Parker in his prime, John Coltrane. John Densmore said that Shelley's Manhole right here at 1608 Cahuenga was the best jazz club in Hollywood. It is right on the corner of Selma and Cahuenga. It's 1608. Shelley's Manhole is now the Aperol Spritz Jazz Club in the 60s. Alright, the journey continues, walking in the footsteps of the Doors. Right here, across the street at 6230 West Sunset Boulevard, is the Aquarius, also known as the Hullabaloo Club and the Kaleidoscope. But it was here in July of 1969 that the Doors played 2 sold-out shows, and Paul Rothchild recorded both of those performances and a rehearsal the next day to use it on a 1970 Absolutely Live album. When the Doors performed at the Aquarius, the musical Hair was also running, and for Hair, the Aquarius had been given a psychedelic paint job, as you see. Very bright, very colorful. In 2018, the building was repainted to look exactly as it did in 1969 for Quentin Tarantino's Hollywood film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And as we spin around, we see the Hollywood Palladium right here. Even though Jim Morrison never played at the Hollywood Palladium, the Doors trio of John Densmore, Robby Krieger, and Ray Manzarek played their first show here as a trio in November 1971. Looks like they do still have some shows here, hiring for security. But right here, the Doors trio, which is right across the street from the Aquarius. 2 sold-out shows in 69. I believe it was in 68 that it was the Kaleidoscope earlier in the year, and then they changed it later. And it was the Hullabaloo Club. That building has changed names a lot. But as we spin and continue to head east, past the Hollywood Palladium, which is at 6215 Sunset Boulevard. All right, corner of Sunset and El Centro Avenue. And we have a couple more stops on Sunset Boulevard, and then we're gonna make our way up to Hollywood Boulevard for a couple more. So hang tight and continue our journey as we in the footsteps of the Doors. I know, that was pretty awesome, wasn't it? Yeah. All right, stay tuned. We're walking. We have come to Sunset Boulevard and El Centro Avenue at 6121. We have the Columbia Square. And this is where the Doors were initially signed to Columbia Records. Billy James liked their music. And they even were allowed to go buy Vox equipment, which worked out really well for Ray Manzarek because he played a Vox Continental. So he got one, compliments of Columbia Records. They signed them, but eventually released them without ever recording any music. They were put on the cut list. You know, they went into the offices one day, and as the story goes, Jim had a little bit of LSD before he went into Columbia Records here. And nobody knows exactly what he did or what he said, but shortly after, the Doors were on the drop list. Right here, Columbia Records. But everything worked out for the best. Billy James worked with the Doors down the road after he left Columbia Records. But it was right in that area, Columbia Records, where the Doors were signed and the Doors were released without ever recording. And I just wonder, Columbia Records has to be kicking themselves pretty hard. They messed up on that one. That was definitely a missed opportunity on Columbia Records' part. But hey, getting a little sunny here, we'll flip it around. We're gonna go check out one more spot here on Sunset Boulevard, and then we're gonna head north to the Hollywood Boulevard, Hard Rock Cafe, the Doors Star. Let's go. All right, here on the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Gower Street was the Copper Skillet, the 6000 block of Sunset Boulevard. And this is where Jim ran into Ian Whitcomb in 1967. And Whitcomb was an English singer, had a hit record. '67, a hit record, You Turn Me On. And Ian Whitcomb had a book of poetry Jim recognized and even recited one of the poems from memory. So the Copper Skillet was right here on the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Gower Street, which is no longer there, as you can see. Looks like Sunset Gower Towers and some office space is for lease right on the corner. So Copper Skillet, 1967. And now we're gonna head up to the Hollywood Boulevard and check out the Hard Rock Cafe and the Doors Star on Hollywood Boulevard. Walk of Fame.
The Enos House, 2655 Glendower Avenue. This is where Jim did a photo shoot in April 1968 with Paul Ferreira. We weren't able to make it to this location because it was too far off the beaten path, and we did not have a rental car for this trip.
Right out in front of the Hard Rock Cafe on Hollywood Boulevard is the Doors Star. Ray Manzarek and Robby Krieger received the star on February 28th, 2007. John was unable to make it. They claimed he couldn't make the ceremony because he was obligated to do a radio show. It was very important, I'm sure. Real radio interview that totally existed and couldn't have been possibly rescheduled. But it was a bummer that the divide between them ran so deep that John couldn't even enjoy a beautiful moment like receiving the star on Hollywood Boulevard. And then after the ceremony, where Jim Ladd introduced Ray and Robby, He said some words. Jim's nephew Dylan said some words, and then they went over to the Roosevelt Hotel across the street, up the road a little bit, for a celebration of receiving the star on Hollywood Boulevard. So, like I said, we are right out here, Hollywood Boulevard. So we're gonna go in here. Ooh, it looks like maybe prom or something going on. All right, Hard Rock Cafe obviously did not exist when Jim and the Doors were playing here. Oh, it looks like they have some music going on here, so we don't want to interrupt that. At the Hard Rock Cafe on Hollywood Boulevard. Going to a go-go. If you go west on Sunset about 3 miles, you'll come to ground zero of the West Coast rock scene, the Whiskey A Go-Go. The Whiskey is a quintessential rock and roll nightclub. Sorry, CBGB, but it's true. And since 1964, has played host to some of the most memorable gigs in history. Name an important group, and chances are they've graced the stage at the Whiskey at some point in their career. Hendrix, The Who, Zeppelin, the list is endless. The Doors were the house band for a time, and the venue even popularized the concept of the go-go dancer, white boots and all. No visit to LA is complete without catching a gig at the Whiskey. And we will be there tomorrow night on the Sunset Strip. I'm not gonna read that one too, but there it is inside the Hard Rock Cafe on Hollywood Boulevard.
Jim Morrison's brown leather pants are right here at the Hard Rock Cafe on Hollywood Boulevard. Morrison had become such a legend that it's hard to find a vocalist today who hasn't borrowed something from the Lizard King's look, sound, and ultra-cool swagger. The man defined the role of the moody frontman in modern rock. These brown leather pants were worn by Jim almost every single day for 2 years, including July 5th, 1968 at the Hollywood Bowl.
Here is a better shot of the Roosevelt Hotel on Hollywood Boulevard. 7000 Hollywood Boulevard on February 28th, 2007. This is where Ray Manzarek, Robbie Krieger, and the Doors Associates celebrated their star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Very nice architecture. We'll take a quick peek in here. It's very possible Ray Manzarek, Robbie Krieger had their party for the Doors star right there in that bar area. That is not confirmed. That is just a possibility. Back out to Hollywood Boulevard, and right down there is the Hard Rock Cafe. But next, we're gonna head to Sycamore Street to Ray and Dorothy's. So come along with us as we continue. Walk in the footsteps of the Doors. All right, y'all, we're going up to Ray and Dorothy's. Catch you in a bit. As we walk up North Sycamore, Catfish Billy had to take a little break. Them legs getting tired. We put in a lot of miles, that's for sure. But we're doing it for all you Doors fans out there. 1764, North Sycamore, Hollywood. The villas on Sycamore is where Ray Manzarek and Dorothy Fujikawa moved to after they lived at the beach house, Venice Beach. Not quite sure exactly which unit they lived in here. Could have been that one, could have been that one, could have been that one, or that one. Sir, do you know which unit Ray Manzarek lived in? Okay. Thank you. That's okay. Nice little pool here that Ray and Dorothy may have enjoyed, along with possibly Jim, John, and Robby. They just wanted to move to be a little bit closer to where all the action was, because this is just about a block and a half right up Hollywood Boulevard. And it was just a one-bedroom unit. Close to the Chinese Theater. Close to the Sunset Strip. Which one was it, Ray? Talk to me, brother. Oh. He said the penthouse. It's always best at the top. All right. We're heading uphill to the Hollywood Bowl. Here we go. Hit it, Catfish Billy. Just a little bit more.
Go!
Let's get it. Yeah, we're walking up to the Hollywood Bowl right here. The most iconic venue, definitely in Hollywood, if not the entire world. The Beatles have played here. Joni Mitchell, I think Van Halen played here. But we're here, not for the fish, but on July 5th, 1968, The Doors. Jim Morrison, Ray Manzarek, Robbie Krieger, John Densmore played the Hollywood Bowl. But before they came up to the Hollywood Bowl, they were hanging out with the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger and a couple of the other guys, the Alta Cienega Motel, and they also went to Mu Ling's Chinese restaurant before coming up to the Hollywood Bowl, and they would have pulled right in here and drove. Right up to the back parking lot that way, where Jim did some levitation photos with Pam and another model, but we're not going to be able to get back there today. Very, very busy for fish tonight. But I do have some footage of the Hollywood Bowl that I will share along with this video, and some pictures of Jim Morrison walking the edge at the Hollywood Bowl. Alright, y'all. And now we take the trip back down the hill. As you can see, very, very busy at the Hollywood Bowl. If you're not at the Hollywood Bowl, you're just not cool. And this Catfish Billy guy is pretty cool. He's been hanging all day, hoofing it, but no more hoofing. We're gonna hop on some scooters and head back down the hill. As we walk up to the Hollywood Bowl, it would have been right there to the left where the Doors and the Rolling Stones would have driven and parked. Beautiful views all around the Hollywood Bowl. But as we walk in, let's go check it out. 17,500, I believe, is the capacity. Close to 18,000. Jim walked on the ledges on what used to be the pool area. He got there a little bit early. They had to do their sound check, and they had to turn all of their amps down because everything had to be under a certain decibel level. You know, Hollywood Hills, Hollywood rules, regulations, policies, laws, whatever they had going on back July 5th, 1968. But you will also see some photos of Jim. What appears to be in Section E is the best that I could line these up. And that's actually the section that we were just in for David Gilmour. There's Jim walking on one of the benches right there. And he's sitting on what appears to be Section E at the Hollywood Bowl. So when they performed, they had to cover what used to be the pool because they were afraid that Jim would fall into the pool with the mic, get electrocuted. So they covered that up for safety. right here at 8021. Currently the Laugh Factory, but in late 1966, early 1967, when the Doors were recording their very first album at Sunset Sound, they had just finished Light My Fire. Jim was tripping balls on LSD, went back to the studio and sprayed everything down with a fire extinguisher. And then the next day they had breakfast right here at Ah Fang's Chinese restaurant. And the guys questioned Jim about it. He's like, I did that? Come on, really? He didn't remember doing it because he was high as hell on LSD. And Jack Holzman talked to Paul Rothschild, and Paul found Jim's boot stuck in the fence at Sunset Sound, so they know he had done it. And Paul also thought he had seen Jim climbing the fence of Sunset Sound after he had had a late night dinner. So right now, as you see, it is the Laugh Factory right here on the corner of Laurel Avenue and Sunset Boulevard at 8021. So right here, it is also Greenblatt's Delicatessen Restaurant and a fine wine shop. So it was right here, all thongs, that the guys called out Jim about hosing down the studio, and he just kind of laughed it off like it didn't even happen. But Jack Holzman made sure everything was cleaned up and taken care of, so all was well. And the Doors continued to set the world on fire. So we are now gonna head west and continue walking in the footsteps of the Doors. Let's go.